Welcome, smAsho team, Smash team to the Smash stream. Welcome, Smash team to the Smash stream. We're looking at the sun in 304 angstroms here. And we're going to give you about 1 minute of lead time, get people to join the live chat. Please tell your friends and your foes. Be back in 1 minute, so stay tuned. All right, well, welcome, folks, to the final few days of spring. What will you be doing with your last few days of spring? 2019. Is your garden planted yet? Is it hot where you live? We got a lot of stuff to cover, so I guess no screwing around. Major filamentary activity there on the northeast of the sun. Let's do a zoom in on that. Check it out. By the way, this is the last 7 hours and 15 minutes of solar activity, so this is current. Let's look at it in 171 angstroms also, my personal favorite. We saw tornadic looking activity there yesterday, and still some activity there today. Possibly producing a little bit of ejecta there. We'll look at it from some other perspectives momentarily. All right, let's look at one more view here. We'll do 193 angstroms actually. Look for coronal holes and then move on, as there's a lot of stuff to cover. Again, 10.7 centimeter radio flux now down to 66. So some of the lowest conditions that we see ever in terms of 10.7 centimeter radio flux, a measure of the sun's outermost corona, and a feature which usually follows sunspot number quite proportionally. So we see some coronal holes rotating out of the Earth-facing region there. A little bit of activity in the northeast limb. Otherwise, super weak sun. Let's look at the solar wind. We are expecting some perturbations in this. We see a BZ in the negative territory and an increasing magnetic field there. The top pane, the black line. So BT is around 4. BZ is at -2 or so. Fleeting coronal hole connection there, it looks like. And a recent rise in the solar wind density, although minor, to 5.63 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed very low. Solar minimum conditions 322 kilometers per second. Let's look at the magnetosphere movies. We'll look at the pressure and the density. We should see a small uptick in the density about midway through the movie, and we'll let that play through. For your new viewers out there, keep in mind the white is low density and the blue is high density. I know it may be counterintuitive, but that's the way it works. Here's the pressure. Very weak due to that low wind speed. This is 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan. So a very weak but steady magnetosphere. And nothing to write home about there. We are expecting some coronal hole wind streams to come in late tonight around midnight. Excuse me, around midnight Universal time. Let's look at the geospace ground perturbations here, if we can get it to load. Which it didn't want to load earlier, so I don't know. Maybe this one is busted. No, there we go. So here are the magnetic ground perturbations across the globe, and we'll let that play through as well. Those of you not aware of the polar excursion, we have two North Poles, and the South Pole is drifting toward Western Australia. Let's talk about the channel, smAsho.org. If you want to support it, hit us up on Patreon. We just put up our mission on there yesterday, which we've been reading regularly on these videos. So check out patreon.com/smAshomash. Some of the posts are public, and the mission's right there. It's a very tall image. Basically, it's to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, as you are living in a neo-renaissance. So congratulations on that. It's an interesting time for science as physics gets rewritten, especially astrophysics. Also to raise awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects, to connect and consult with media organizations, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof of concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers, 3 of which are in the works, to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomenon and to not be ossified in our beliefs. So if you want to support the channel, do it on Patreon, or do it by going to our links in the description below this video. The Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, designed specifically for our viewers, is linkable there. They've got a sale right now going on for the whole plant CBD in hemp seed oil. So there you go. If you want the 1,500 milligrams, looks like the 1,000 milligrams. I don't know. Anyway, check out the Hemp Lucid campaign, the Spaced Out campaign for our viewers. Again, links in the description, as we have finally entered the affiliate space. More affiliates to come. So if you're interested in CBD products, including CBD products for your pets, they got chicken flavored and fish flavored. Apparently the cat one is 30% off too. So check those links out. Also visit theveloshop.net. Here's a quote from Becky, the owner of the shop. I remember when I fell in love with cycling and went into a bike shop to buy my first serious bike. I immediately felt uncomfortable, as though I didn't belong there unless I was a top flight pro, which she now is. That will never happen at the Velo Shop, where everyone at all levels will be treated as if they just won the World Championships or perhaps an Olympic gold. We all share a love of the bike, and that's all that matters. So it's also our cycling team. That's who I race for. And yeah, theveloshop.net. If you want to sponsor us, please email me at smashomash@gmail.com. And we are trying to raise another $5,445 by Friday. So if you want to do that, please do, as I am returning to bike racing. Hell or high water. If you like the original music on the videos, check out the links in the description to SoundClick and SoundCloud, as we've got pages in both of those spots, completely different portions of the musical portfolio. You could call it a representative sample of the music for all you science nerds out there. Anyway, again, 10.7 centimeter radial flux back down to 66, and that is not welcome, as we have seen enough of the solar minimum. And check out this photo of red sprites from space. Woo! That is a good one. Thank you, ISS. Oh, man. Amazing. Anyway, on the homepage of spaceweather.com, let's look at spaceweathernews.com, as Ben Davidson has been kind enough to compile all of this data for you in one nice spot, which means smashomash.com and .org don't have to do it. X-ray flux is utterly flatlined. No surprise there. Solar wind very low. We're going to see some spikes in the magnetometer. So the magnetometer is looking smooth and weak. This is going to kick up very quickly, and very soon we're going to see some sawtooth looking spikes in the magnetometer, and I'll show you why momentarily. KP index is at 1, off of 0, sputtering between 1 and 0 over the past, I don't know, 12 hours. Electron flux is low, not as low as it was yesterday. It's been steadily increasing, but still at a very low level. So we'll see no charging hazards, as you see there. And the F2 layer is extremely discharged, almost down to 7 megahertz on the F2 side. And on the F side, the nighttime side there, massively discharged, especially in the southern hemisphere. Seems like a cold night in Antarctica, folks. If you're in Antarctica right now viewing the videos, and I know about 6 people stay there all winter. By the way, if you want to go to Antarctica and stay over winter, you may be able to do so. But if you're not able to shovel snow, you're not going, because they have to shovel snow every day or they'll die. There are your aurora forecasts. And actually, the borealis, they're both surprisingly large considering how weak the solar wind is. But again, we are expecting this to kick up within about 18 hours, as there is a coronal hole wind stream headed toward the Earth. Now, here's the gong, too. And what we're talking about when we're talking about magnetometer spikes is you see these areas where the force lines go straight to the sun. Right there. That's a region that the Earth is just about to enter, magnetically speaking. Keep in mind, this data is 2 hours and 7 minutes old. So keep an eye on that GOES magnetometer. It's going to show some striations. And then once the field lines pass into this region here of plasma, again, you see this little bunched up area of plasma right there. That's going to cause the magnetometer to smooth out again, believe it or not. Let's look at stereo A. It's coronagraph. As we see a plasma plume coming around the far side of the sun. Keep in mind the Earth is off in this direction, folks. If you're a new viewer, the Earth is out this way. We see very low activity in terms of the atmosphere in between the Earth and the sun. But on the non-Earth side, on the opposite side, we see a plasma plume coming up. So looks like some activity rising once again. Probably that giant plage that we saw, which has been rotating the sun for quite a while. So eyes on that as it comes through. Here's the location of the planets. And yeah, Milky Way galaxy team for the win. For your new viewers out there, stereo A is located right about here where my pointer is. And we use stereo A to see Earth-facing coronal mass ejections. Stereo B, located out here, has not fared so well since 2014 when a hardware anomaly destroyed most of its equipment. Here's where things will be in 1 week. The moon will be waning, and you're still going to be able to see Jupiter and Saturn in the night sky. Now, right now, there's an incredible sky going on. Let me refresh that as it's got old data. We got a great lineup in the sky right now. Jupiter and the moon very close together. So if you're up before dawn, or perhaps in the middle of the night, they are quite closely lined up, and Saturn should be trailing. So something to check out. And I always like to draw the ecliptic in, as it shows you where the main action is happening. I would also note the summer triangle, consisting of Deneb and Altair and Vega. Visible all summer, as Altair those three just go around and around Polaris. I'm going to skip cosmic rays and move on to social media. Follow us on Twitter if you like, although I don't tweet. smAsho staff does put up the videos, so you can share them with your friends who only use Twitter, for instance. Also on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook.com/smAshomash. the social media giant that will censor you and will write terrible code. Now, we're not a huge fan of Facebook, but we're there anyway because, well, because of reach. Part of the mission. Also, follow me on Instagram. Some interesting stuff, sometimes recipes. Here's a shout out to Coleman's Mustard. Oh, man. Oh, geez. If you've never tried Coleman's Mustard, get some. I am not paid to say that, although it is a sponsor. Oh, man. Holy. Those are some chicken thighs I made last night in the air fryer, and they were incredible. In fact, I think there might be some leftovers, and those might be gone right after I'm done making this video. I'm not sure. Don't eat the leftovers, smAsho staff. Also follow us on Gab, our latest foray into social media, which I do plan to use because I refuse to use Twitter ever. Also minds.com, the legit open source social media that will not censor you. Yes, it's true. It's true. To quote Kurt Angle. Watch our older videos, such as yesterday when we talked about how 10.7 centimeter radio flux all the way down to 67. Well, now it's even lower. Let's hit refresh and see if we've gained or lost subscribers. We're treading water at 1,346 subscribers as we do some stuff about space weather nobody else in the world is doing. Anyway, thanks for viewing, folks, and make sure you press like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Still a lot of stuff to cover. We got a whole bunch of articles open. So let's do a earthquake rundown at a breakneck speed. We see a 4.9 in Tonga. See a 4.9 in Mexico at 89.8 kilometers depth. How about a 5.0 in Indonesia? 4.6 in Solomon Islands. Here's a 5.5 at New Zealand in the same spot where we saw that 7.4 quake downgraded to a 7.2. 4.9 at Lesbron Rock. Another 4.9, so all aftershock looking type events associated with that 7+ magnitude quake, 7.2 quake they had 2 days ago. Here's a 4.6 at Argentina. We see a 3.2 on Hawaii and a 3.1. Let's check out the location of that, as it could be magmatic activity. And it's looking awfully close to some new real estate formed by Kilauea. Please leave a comment if you're familiar with that location and whether or not there are magma chambers, as I have no idea, and I'm not going to keep covering it because there's a lot of stuff to talk about yet. So we also see a 4.9 at Japan, a 5.0 at Lesbron Rock, and a 4.9. So lots of quaking going on New Zealand. Please leave a comment if your mother-in-law's photograph fell off the wall, smashed on the floor, and you celebrated. 4.4 at the Fiji region at an incredibly deep depth, 625 kilometers. Heads up Fiji for a larger quake at the surface. At least there are no giant coronal holes facing the Earth right now. Here's a 4.9, also at New Zealand, 5.0 at Indonesia. At depth, heads up Indonesia for a larger quake at the surface there. If that quake happened at the surface, that would be about a 6 magnitude, as that quake was 175 kilometers deep. Here's another aftershock at New Zealand, 5.5 at Indonesia. At depth, 6.0 at New Zealand. New Zealand taking a ton of quakes. And lastly, a 5.0 very far south at the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. An odd place for quakes, except apparently during solar minima. Speaking of solar minima, let's look at this insane Northern Hemisphere jet stream, if you want to call it a jet stream, which is largely governed by convective forces here. Anyway, here we are at the flight altitude 30,000. This is similar to the 250 millibar winds that you would see in the upper dynamics on tropical tidbits. We see completely distorted jet stream all across the northern hemisphere. The Middle East is completely governed by convective forces. The US has some jet stream that's moving from east to west instead of west to east right here. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That's not normal. Let's look at pressure maps, as this is the way you predict earthquakes. I would note the massive anticyclone is still over Greenland, freaking people out about high pressure. They're going to try to tell you that global warming caused it to be so cold in the northern hemisphere that we had record snow two winters in a row. Let's look at the US Doppler radar. As the central US continues to get hammered day in and day out by horrific storms, such as these in Texas once again, and these look incredibly harsh, probably producing things like damaging wind and hail, possibly tornadoes. Let's zoom in further, as I hate to say it, Texas, but you are getting kaplastered. If you're in these areas, have your kayaks, skiffs, boats, helmets, Spanish galleons, schooners, and catamarans ready, because it's flooding again. Now, we're going to look at the water vapor map, as we like to show folks what's going on in the upper atmosphere when these storms hit. And since they hit every day, we cover this every day. So check this out, this insane convergence. By the way, tornadoes tend to form on the northwest corner of supercells in the northern hemisphere. So keep that in mind when you see those radar maps. The tornadoes usually pop up in the areas northwest of the red zone. So when you see the red on the radar, the northwest corner of those storms is typically the dangerous spot. We're not going to get into the weeds of why, but check out all the Hall streamers, Hall current streamers. Right there is a great example where my pointer is at the end, right there. See all those parallel lines? If you think those are chemtrails, folks, I would note that the resolution of this image is 2 kilometers. If you think a plane is producing a 2-kilometer chemtrail, then I don't know what to tell you, except that's not a thing. Here's lightningmaps.org. And the lightning is coming in hot, especially in the Gulf. If you are on a shrimp boat with Forrest Gump out there, I would get below decks. Victoria, that's Victoria, Texas. Heads up, there is thunder rolling in. And next time you hear thunder, folks, check out lightningmaps.org. You will be amazed at how this works until your power goes out. But if you got a mobile device, you'll still be amazed. Let's look at the watchers. And that is the watchers.news. As violent hailstorms hit France once again, causing catastrophic agricultural damage. If you weren't aware that food prices are going to rise, well, we've been saying it since February on this channel. And we can't just say the same thing every day because there's too much stuff to cover. But let's look at volcanoes. Sangay with some new emissions, Revenador with some new emissions, and Sabancaya unable to detect possibly erupting. So volcanic downtick, and for that we thank you. Anyway, we've graduated to the that is an ass and that is a hole in the ground section. A new section written by me, where we talk about things like wildlife and wild and crazy planets. and wild and crazy galaxies. If you're not familiar with this animation, this is the galactic core of M31, otherwise known as the Andromeda Galaxy, the closest major galaxy to our home. And those are all blue supergiant stars, similar to Deneb, some circling the star in about a week. So the core of M31 is, shall we say, an interesting and weird place. We actually have a view of this, and this was taken over several years using radio astronomy to put together this insane animation. Define a term, asset. According to Peter Schiff and according to me, cryptocurrencies are not a real
asset.
They are just a speculative
asset,
similar to certain tech stocks. We won't get into that either. The definition of asset is the property of a deceased person subject by law to the payment of his or her debts and legacies. The entire property of a person, association, corporation, or estate applicable or subject to the payment of debts. An item of value owned. Remember, Dutch tulips. Remember the Dutch tulips, folks. Also, something useful in an effort to foil or defeat an enemy, such as a piece of military equipment or a spy. So, asset, know the term. Let's talk about assets. Bitcoin soars above 9,000 after South Korea backpedals crypto ban. So that's good news for crypto. Links to the article in the description. This article from Zero Hedge, already 3 days old. We rarely cover stuff like that, but we didn't get a chance to cover that one yet. Let's look at a couple graphs here. We're going to show you the graph of Bitcoin as reported by Coinbase Exchange. And we're going to go to the 1 year chart on all of these. There's the 1 year chart of Bitcoin. Bitcoin over 9,000. Shout out crypto investors. We're also going to look at Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency and my favorite. Not as big of a spike in the Ethereum, and that's interesting. I would also note the volume. The volume data on all these cryptos may be a little sketchy, folks. So don't necessarily believe all the hype you see about the volume, because I've read some articles and the volume may be inflated as much as 99%. If you don't know about trading volume, I can't give you a lesson in trading right now. But I used to be a day trader. Let's just put it that way. Here's the S&P graph. You see the S&P looks like it's leveled out over the past week or so. Again, 1 year graph of the S&P 500, 500 largest stocks in the U.S. exchanges. Next, we're going to look at some commodities here. We're going to look at oil, which is still incredibly low in price at only $52. There's the 1 year. Let's look at the all data so you understand how high these prices can get, as they did in 2008. There's the all data on oil prices. If anybody says the words peak oil, you know they're lying. Here's gold, 1 year chart of gold. Looks like there's a support level there. Here's the all data on gold. I would note the highs were achieved around 2011 at well over $1,500 an ounce. Also, we're going to look at silver. If I can click on something without the freaking page scrolling by itself. There we go. Thank you. Here's a 1 year chart of silver. Still below 15 bucks an ounce there. Here's the all data on silver. It's been as high as $50 an ounce. And lastly, we're going to look at some agricultural futures here. Look at wheat, which it looks like is up again, 1.4%. And I really wish it would load because we don't have all day. Here's the 1-year chart of wheat. And I would note that we were expecting this price to go up back in February, and it went down for months. I have no idea why. It's because people's heads were obviously in the sand regarding record snowfall in the Northern Hemisphere and a late spring 2 years in a row. Here's soybeans. There's a 1-year chart of that. Keep in mind, countries like Australia have become net importers of grain now instead of net exporters of grain. Corn at massive heights. Let's look at the 5-year. Corn at a 5-year high and nowhere near where it got to in 2011. I saw some oddities in coffee. I'm going to look at that too real quick, and then we're going to move on to more stuff, as there is still a lot of stuff to cover. Here's a 1-year chart of coffee. And let's look at the all data there. And there's the all data for coffee. Let's move on. I'm not going to make any more comments, but I just showed you the graphs. So if you can't figure that out, I don't know what to tell you. Hong Kong leader apologized to public after massive protests over extradition bill. This is about China being able to extradite people from Hong Kong, which would greatly reduce the freedom associated with Hong Kong and its self-governance. Links to the article in the description. It's big news. If you don't know about it, now you do. Massive electrical failure. Thanks, viewer, for citing this article yesterday. We're not sure what caused the power cuts, but Argentina and Uruguay experienced massive power outages on Sunday, leaving millions, I believe, without power, including major cities. It did occur as people were getting ready to head to the polls for local elections. It's not clear how the blackout will impact the voting process. So this does not appear to have been caused by solar activity, as there wasn't any. And if anybody knows what caused the blackouts, please leave a comment. Links in the description of the article. Now, power mostly restored, but questions remain, which is, what caused the unprecedented power outage? I don't know what that's all about, but I'm just going to move on, as there's a lot of stuff to cover. And apparently the city was a disaster, as 16 million woke up with an entirely dark city. Links to that article also in the description, so please visit the links. Here's an article from BBC. Golan Heights. Israel unveils Trump Heights settlement. So there's one of the favorites of the anti-Zionist movement, Benjamin Netanyahu, announcing Trump Heights, a massive billboard-sized sign with Trump's name and American flags on it, located in the Golan Heights contested region of Israel. Chinese raids hit North Korean defectors' underground railroad. Now, in the past, the Underground Railroad operators were used to only having problems right around the North Korean border, but apparently the entire supply chain for the Underground Railroad has been hit. Most worrisome for activists is that the arrests largely occurred away from the border, an area dubbed the Red Zone, where most escapees get caught, and included rare raids on at least 2 safe houses. So a little bit of an interesting turn of events there, perhaps China preparing for an influx of refugees from North Korea as food shortages get worse, especially in a place as bad as North Korea. How about a Zero Hedge article debunking media hysterics that Seattle heat waves could kill hundreds? Now, this is premised on a bunch of models that are garbage in, garbage out models. Links to this article in the description as well, suggesting that if the CO2 continues to increase, a variable that has nothing to do with whether the Earth is warming or cooling, hundreds could die. Now, I would note the fact that heat doesn't kill people, but cold does. If it gets too hot, you just got to hydrate and reduce your activity. If it gets too cold, you freeze into a block of ice and you die. The Earth has been primarily cold for the last several million years, about 3 degrees C cooler than it is now. So keep that in mind if you're worried about the planet heating, because 1.5 degrees of heating would actually be beneficial. As heating bills would, oil consumption would drop, heating bills would drop. Yes, air conditioning bills would increase, but agricultural yields and efficiency would increase also. Let's look at climate change. Here's the last 15,000 years. And let me just zoom in on this area, the present global warming. There it is, folks. There's the present. This is how hot the planet is right now. Right there. There it is. You think your SUV is causing that? Really? Are you serious? How about the past 10 million years? What do you think the average temperature was in the past 10 million years? Oh, was it what I just said? 3 degrees C cooler than it is now? Yeah. All of human civilization, all of known mainstream understood human civilization occurred right in this area. And that's it. Down here, society didn't exist, at least not in any sort of a context where you would think of it now. And down here, sea levels were hundreds of feet lower than they are today, which is why there are submerged cities all around the world. How about the past 500 million years of climate change? There you go. Notice the planet's been much warmer. And I would also note that you see this area right here about 33 million years ago, when the Earth was 3 degrees C warmer than it is now. That's the point at which glaciers started to form in Antarctica. If you're worried about Antarctica melting, I guess it has to be over 3 degrees C warmer. And meanwhile, the government is worried about, well, not the government, perhaps not the government. Some climate alarmists are worried about the planet warming 1 degree C over the next 100 years, which incidentally isn't going to happen. Look at CO2, how it relates to temperature. And this doesn't have a scale, but this is about 600 million years on this scale. So if you think these increases in CO2 are causing the temperature to go up, please explain this graph as you are incorrect. Let's talk about a huge scam. Vehicle inspections and emissions. Now, the test in Pennsylvania for emissions is ridiculous to begin with. It is a test to make sure that your gas cap doesn't leak. It is not a tailpipe test, and it has nothing to do with smog emission. Nothing to do with that. Also, vehicle inspections are a scam, as there are redundancies built into every vehicle and liability built into everything you do. If you're driving down the road and your car falls apart and you crash and you cause other people to crash, that's on you. Having vehicle inspections is for idiots. It shouldn't exist. It's a complete scam. Vehicle inspections, lobby against them. Now, PA is talking about bagging the emissions portion at least, which is a step in the right direction. Vehicle inspections are idiotic, and they're socialism. And they're put in place by organizations like the United Auto Workers Union, where the average salary is about $140,000 a year. They want you to think that they're just nice blue-collar workers when they're actually revolving door Democrat money lobbyists. What happened to the Apollo Goodwill moon rocks? You don't even want to know. But I'll read some of them anyway, as it's horrifying. Nixon gave moon rocks to all 50 states and 135 countries. Let's run down a list of some that were lost and or later found. How about Afghanistan? Well, those vanished. Boy, that's a surprise. How about Cyprus? It was never delivered due to the 1974 Turkish invasion of the island and the assassination of the U.S. ambassador the following month. It was given to NASA years later by the son of a U.S. diplomat, but has not been handed over to Cyprus. Well done. Honduras? Theirs was sold to a Florida businessman for $50,000. who then tried to sell it for $5 million. It was seized and eventually returned to Honduras. How about Ireland? Well, the observatory burned down in 1977, and the debris, including the moon rock, ended up in the Finglas landfill. So if you want to go dig up the Finglas landfill, have fun. I'm not interested, but yeah. How about Libya? Oh, they vanished. Can you believe that they would have vanished after the CIA causes the government to be overturned because they talk about going on to a gold standard? Oh, no. I can't believe the moon rock vanished. How about Malta? The military island of Malta. It was stolen in May 2004 and has not been found. How about Nicaragua? What happened there? Oh, it got returned. It ended up with a Vegas casino owner. Anyway, there's links to this article also in the description. Let's look at what happened in Spain. Spain's moon rock is on display in Madrid's Naval Museum after being donated by the family of Admiral Luis Carrero Blanco, who was assassinated by the Basque separatist group ETA in 1973. Spain's Apollo 11 moon rock is missing and believed to be in the hands of the former dictator Francisco Franco. All right. Finally, an article about Cassini showing sculpting in Saturn's moons by the, what do you call them? The satellites. They call them, what the hell do they call them? Little Bo Peep lost her sheep satellites. Anyway, interesting sculpting caught by Cassini there in Saturn's rings, as people conjecture over and over again about how old they are, how they formed, and so on, without having the slightest idea. We're not going to look at transients today, but I recommend you do. And let's go back to the 10.7 centimeter radio flux for 1 minute. Let's just look at cycle 24 progress as solar minimum continues. Anyway, that's not going to be evident to our viewers what we're looking at here. So let's just go back to the sun for a moment, bring up a couple more images, open up the chat, and get the hell out of here. As spring is nearly over. All right, I'm liking the Dopplergram lately because it shows a nice blank sun. It's very apropos for the solar minimum conditions. I think that's going to be the thumbnail, as it makes me feel as cold as the temperatures do. So thanks for joining, everybody. Let me just attempt to get through the comments here, and just bear with me. If you're going to leave a comment, I suggest you do it now, because we are out of here very soon. Again, thanks for leaving comments, folks. We appreciate it. Perhaps one day YouTube will pay us to make these videos. But don't be confused, because YouTube pays us nothing. And so far, we are not unconvinced that it's a scam. Who's spying on us, Harry? Who's spying? Don't worry, Harry. They're not going to find anything. Spy away. Kahlo Jan, look at my pointer. It's not Tuesday. What, you think I should be on Joe Rogan? I'll gladly go on Joe Rogan, Polar Bear. If you can get me on the show, let me know. Email me at smAshomash@gmail.com. And again, If you want your corporate sponsors put on Olympic and world level athletes, email me at smAsho@gmail.com. We'll make it happen. It may not be as expensive as you think to get your logos on our kit. Don't worry, Jan. Bitcoin is going to crash, in my opinion. Bitcoin is going to crash. It's just a speculative asset, just like Dutch tulips. If you don't know the story of the Dutch tulips, read up the Dutch tulips. You'll be very interested. People lost their houses over tulip bulbs. The problem with heat stroke deaths, Jan, is that when they list heat deaths, if you read the article, people do more outdoor activities when it's hot. So you got to get rid of all the deaths caused by cycling and mountain climbing and whitewater rafting and drowning in the ocean and all that sort of stuff. And the heat doesn't kill people. It just doesn't. The cold kills people and the heat doesn't. If your power goes out in the summertime, you don't die. If your power goes out in the wintertime, you might. Harry, the evaporation of fresh water for dams isn't going to do anything. Those evaporative processes that are associated with global warming concerns aren't real. It's not the way the atmosphere works. About that time. So I would implore you all to increase your carbon footprint. Go outside, burn a tire today. It will not make the planet warmer, and even if it did, that would be a benefit. All right, it's about that time, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Please remember, when you're staring at the sun, don't drink. And if you drink, stare at the sun anyway, just don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your veins.